already knows. Getting all emotional. No. My name's Teresa, and I'm a grateful believer and an addict and alcoholic in recovery.
Hi, Teresa.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here tonight. I like this table. I feel so scholarly. So, as promised, this evening I wanted to talk a little bit about emotions and how we can learn to navigate emotions, and how we can look at emotions as not a problem that needs to be fixed, but as a gift that we've been blessed with, that God has blessed us with. So, but He's made us the steward of our emotions, just like He's made us the steward of all the other things He's blessed us with. If He gives us financial resources, He says, I don't give that to you in order for you to, to go crazy or to get away from me or to turn your back on me or to just go do your thing with it. He says, I ask you to steward that blessing, to steward that resource for His glory. So we can kind of think about that sort of logically with financial resources or the things that He actually gives us that we can hold in our hands, but emotions are kind of the same thing. He blesses us with emotions and He asks us to steward them. He doesn't say to deny them or to throw them away or to say we don't have them or to go crazy with them and, get all mad and start tearing up the Walmart because they don't have the right color or something that we think we need to have. Not that I've ever done anything like that. I can go to Walmart now, so that was temporary. That whole problem was temporary. So I often, once a year, I give this talk about emotions because I think it's really important. And one of the reasons that I do that is because I felt kind of ambushed by emotions, and I still do sometimes. I'm a little confused by sometimes just how strong emotions will come on. I'm also a little confused by how sometimes emotions are still kind of difficult. Like, I don't like being angry. I don't know what to do with being angry. I say dumb things when I'm angry, or I say nothing. Or I get really quiet and afraid and withdrawn, and I avoid that person, or I avoid that situation. So emotions end up being this kind of sticky, scary, weird thing that I'm like, no thank you. I would like to not have any more of that, please. But the thing is if we say no thank you to the ones that are bothersome, then we say no thank you to joy and to love and to peace and to those feelings of harmony and those feelings of like our heart is just enjoying a beautiful sunrise in the morning. If we say no to the spectrum of emotions, it's like deciding we don't want to see color anymore. You don't get to just choose which colors you want to see. So anyway, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. So this is this is a little different talk that I've given in the past because what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a summary of this book that I've really enjoyed. This is by Jenny Allen, and she's written lots of Christian books, like Find Your People and Untangling Your Thoughts. And she's a Christian podcaster, speaker. She has a big following. And this one is called Untangle Your Emotions. And it's basically a book that I am doing with two of my sponsees that I'm working with because we finished working the steps. So then we choose books to go through. That means I actually have to read it and, show up like ready to discuss it and all that stuff. So I love I'm doing it with two sponsees because that means I have to read it twice. So maybe I'll actually learn something. And I'm gonna so this is part summary, and it's also part testimony, because I've been really impacted by this book and the experience of learning, like pausing and learning to experience emotions in a real, authentic, healthy way that draws me closer to God. And that's what emotions are for. That is the purpose of emotions. They are to draw us closer to God. They're not to make us punch somebody. They're not to make us cry and feel despair and desperate. They're not to make us feel happy and go off and spend $1 bazillion because we're in such a good mood. Emotions are all over the place. They have a wide range, but the purpose of emotions are to draw us closer to God. And if we can really zero in on that purpose, we can actually pause with these emotions. We can feel strong emotion. We can sit with that for a minute. We can pray about it. We can invite God into that experience, and we can ask God, what are you doing with this? What am I supposed to do with this? What do you want from me? What am I supposed to learn? How am I supposed to grow? And we can sit with that, sharing that experience with God, and it will enrich our relationship with God. I love a line that she has in here about, for a lot of us, our relationship with God may be strengthened and deepened by raw emotion, if we let it. But I was in a space where I was really struggling with experiencing raw emotion. If I started feeling something that was pretty raw, that I didn't like, I'd just check out. And yeah, that's a thing. I'm actually pretty good at it. And I wasn't drinking, wasn't using, been clean and sober 18 years. So I'm just gonna go for a run. I'm just gonna turn the TV on. I'm just gonna play a mind-numbing game on my phone for hours, until my heart stops pounding so hard. I'm not so mad, I'm not so sad, I'm not so, discouraged. My brain calms down, my nervous system calms down, and okay, now I'm gonna come back to it. I'm gonna pray about it. I'm gonna invite God into it, but I let that opportunity pass to really experience that raw emotion. And so that's what this book addresses, and that is the part of this that's my testimony. I was really struggling with that. I love being the, uber Christian who says, God is so good. I'm just fine. I'm awesome. God's just blessed me so much. My life's so perfect. Oh, smile, 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 smile. And I actually am really, people that have known me for years know I'm a pretty even-keeled person. And it does take quite a bit to ruffle me, but I am ruffled at times. And when I'm ruffled, I run. I run and I hide. I don't call somebody. I don't talk about it. I don't come to a meeting and just sobbing and letting that raw emotion, sharing that raw emotion. I haven't been vulnerable. I haven't been authentic. I confess that to you, my community here, that I often have really struggled with, watching my daughter go to prison, watching her child suffer. And I have been unable to just really say, yeah, there's a lot of emotion in there about that. But instead, I just kind of shrug my shoulders and say, well, it's God's will. God's got a plan in this. And both things can be true at the same time. And that's what this is what the author is trying to tell us here. So I'm just going to do a really quick summary. And if you think you might want to read the book, feel free to ask me questions, or B, just get the book. I just liked how she approached. Her book is basically split into 3 parts. Part 1 says we're a bit of a mess with how we deal with emotions. And she's talking about Christians, church attending in Christian community, presumably clean and sober. I don't think that's necessarily her focus, but we're going to say presumably. These are people that we're sharing church pews with. So that's the population she's talking about. She's not talking about the messy people. She's talking about these pretty tidy people. And she says we're a mess. How did we get that way? That's part 1. And then part 2 is why we're so tangled up. Why emotions get the best of us and we're so tangled up with them. And then part 3 is my favorite part, is how to untangle. And that's the part that really has impacted me. And I've actually read, I'm so glad I'm doing this with 2 different sponsees who are at 2 different places in the book, because I can go back and read this part again and sit with it for a bit. It's been very powerful. So she talks a lot about why we're a bit of a mess and why we feel ambushed by emotions, why something happens in our daily life that seems to trigger some deep emotion that surprises us, and that often our emotions are, she calls it the thing underneath the thing. So when we are surprised by an emotional reaction, it's a good opportunity to pause and to think about, where did that come from? Why am I so angry that, nobody RSVP'd to this event that I volunteered to host, blah, blah, blah. What? I didn't even want to do it. Why on earth would I have this sadness and this I'm not even going to look at the thread that's dealing with this. And so those are opportunities when we're ambushed, when we're surprised, to stop, to pause, to say, what is the thing underneath the thing? And we're going to get into more detail with that. But she says that we have often, especially those of us in recovery, she says dysfunctional homes, but a lot of us in recovery came from homes that had some trauma and some difficulty in them. So we got a lot of messages about emotions and what happens, A, when we feel emotions, and B, when we show that we're feeling emotions. Tears or angry outburst, even happy. I've seen kids, 3-year-old kids, just running around joyfully, and the grown-ups just shut them down sometimes. And it's a message. It's a message that, you kind of wonder, I wonder what they're going to think about that in 40 years. What are they going to be telling their therapist about that? My kids are always telling me, yeah, we talk about you a lot in therapy, Mom. Thanks. So we did get messages. A lot of the messages are really about that it's not safe, that it's not, that we're too vulnerable if we show emotions, and that and most of us learn that we don't act on emotion. And that is a very reasonable approach. We don't act on emotion. But that doesn't mean that we can't pick them up. We can't look at them as, what is the purpose of this then, if I'm not supposed to act on it? What am I supposed to do with it? I'm supposed to use it to connect to others and to connect to God. But those aren't necessarily the early messages we got. Often our own church doesn't give us really great positive messages about experiencing emotion and really sitting and feeling emotion, as long as it is connecting us to others in Christian community and to God. We often get the idea that, really good Christians shouldn't feel too much. I'm just going to leave that at that. So we, a lot of us are either stuffers or exploders, and it's kind of a continuum. We either take a difficult emotion, we'll say disappointment, and we either just do what I do. I'm kind of a stuffer. It's okay. It's all good. I don't mind. Okay. Let's just do something else. Yeah. I really talk like that. Or we're the exploders. We're the finger pointing, why? How could this happen? Whose fault is this? A lot of exploders are like, whose fault is this? I want to know. We're going to fix it. So we decide, or we're told early on, that feelings are meant to be fixed because clearly they're causing us some problems. But God made us with feelings. God made us feelings for a purpose, to tether us to each other and to tether us to God. That is, so she uses the untangle, and she uses lots of imaging about the knot being untied. If we could untie the knot and we could just have this nice tether that was to God, that brought us safely to God and brought us closer and closer and closer to God. The more that we experience deep emotion about what's happening today and how that deep emotion triggers memory and feeling about what happened a long time ago. So it will bring healing because we'll share it with our Father God. So that's really the purpose of some of these difficult feelings. But we have to experience them and sit with them in order for that to happen. She has a line in there about feelings could set us free to love and connect and live more deeply. So she has a chapter in this part 2, about why we're so tangled up, about how we're experts in evasive measures. And I really like this chapter because I am an expert in evasive measures. And she says most of us either cope when we have a difficult feeling or a difficult situation, a disappointment, we cope. Some of us coped, we could have dysfunctional coping. Most of us in this room now have figured out more functional coping, but we're still coping rather than just feeling. So yeah, I might go for a walk. I'm going to grab the dog and go for a walk. Maybe I'm going to engage in some kind of productive activity. Maybe I'm going to go out and garden. Maybe I'm going to, so it's not like I'm doing something bad, but I'm really trying not to feel. I'm going to cope. Or we control. We jump into problem solving. Well, let's figure this out. This is a disappointment. Nobody's RSVP'd. Well, let me just start calling people. Well, let me make the list bigger. Let me figure it all out. Let me control this. I don't like this disappointment, so I'm going to control it. Or we conceal it. And a lot of concealing just kind of gets us into more trouble because a lot of us get into this spiral where we feel like we shouldn't feel disappointment. Oh, well, I shouldn't. I'm having this feeling and I shouldn't feel. We've learned that message somewhere and it sticks with us. So we get into this spiral of concealing when really all we needed to do was sit down for a minute and say, I don't like how this feels. This reminds me of being a kid and nobody came to my birthday party or whatever. God can hear that. Sometimes we all say, oh, that's silly. That's just silly. But if we feel it, it's not silly. That means, again, God blessed us with the capacity to have these feelings. And it's a healing moment when God says, I'm at your birthday party. So, and that is what happens if we can sit with it. But when we conceal it, we try to hide from God that we're having these feelings. That usually goes really well. Sometimes we refuse to share authentically. She has a line in here that says, when we're ready to share authentically, we don't have to talk to everyone about our feelings, or especially difficult feelings, but we have to talk to someone. So you choose someone that is safe. So now we're going to jump into the part where the part of the book where she says how to untangle. And she has this 5, most authors have a five-step process. So, except for Bill, he had 12 steps, but most of us can't really handle that these days. So it's mostly 4 or 5 steps. But I really liked how she approached this. It's very gentle, and she says that if we really want to start getting friendly with feeling, with our emotions, difficult emotions, and with allowing ourselves space to feel them. Step 1 is to notice when we're having a feeling. And I really loved this chapter because I was like, yeah, I don't even notice till 3 days later when I'm like, I was really mad about that. Or that really hurt my feelings. Or I felt really disappointed or sad or whatever. But I just power through. And a lot of us do that. We're just busy and we're just going to power through. I don't even notice. And I love how she says, listen, if you're a beginner, just decide to say, I'm not okay, instead of I'm fine. You don't even have to know what you're feeling. And I'm telling you, I am like a kindergartner when it comes to this stuff. I would do better with one of those stupid little emoji charts than with naming what I'm feeling. It's really hard for me. So I feel like I should just walk around with an emoji chart, pointing on some days when I'm having the feelings. And you can tell I'm even annoyed by the whole thing. The feelings. But I love how she writes about it. She writes to people like me that are just like, oh, this is just such nonsense, but it's not nonsense. And I'm going to get to the part where I'm going to tell you like just how profound it was. So she says to just stop saying I'm fine, to just do your best to say I'm okay, or I'm not okay. You don't have to explore it. You don't have to decide why you're not okay. And you definitely don't have to tell anybody why you're not okay. That is your business, but you can notice it. So that's all you're doing then, is you're just noticing it. And you're sitting with it and being okay with it. Because what we know is we will be okay. But we skip right to that. I skip right to that so quickly. Like, oh, let's just ignore this and just skip to the I'm okay. But no, let's sit with the I'm not okay, just for a minute. Then she says step 2 is we name it. And we keep naming it. We get as descriptive as possible. She names 4 main emotions: joy, anger, fear, and sadness. I can buy that. Those are good categories. But then you can put a lot of words, descriptive words, underneath each of those categories. But if we're doing the kindergarten approach here, which I'm all for, then we're saying I'm not okay, I'm sad. See the sad face? Okay. Now we're gonna look on the emoji chart for something more specific. We can keep trying as we're getting better at it to really sit with, what am I feeling? So then she says to feel it. And this is the tricky part, because we've really spent a lot of time not actually feeling our feelings and skipping over this. So we take a minute and we ask, or we give yourself space, because you might not have space right that minute, and that's okay. But that's been kind of an excuse. That was my excuse for years and years and years. Like, I don't have the space to do this. I have a million things to do. Nope, I gotta do this. I gotta call that person. Nope. But it really is just more of my evasive measures. And because I can't give myself this space. God asks us to give yourself this space. He says, I blessed you with this. You're going to steward it by giving yourself the space to pick this gift up and explore it. So if you're having a strong feeling, then give yourself some space. Maybe you're at work and you can't do it right that minute, but you're gonna say, okay, after work, I'm gonna just sit and have some space to pause and give yourself permission without judgment. That's the other thing. Our brain right away goes to, why are you so sad? Why are you disappointed? Like, that's so lame that you're disappointed. Like, you have everything. You have everything that you could ever want. how could you even, blah, 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 blah. I have a voice. Not my outside voice, my inside voice. Well, just go on with this judgment about you should be happy, you should be grateful, you should be. And yes, that's the goal. We're going to get there. We're not going to behave in an ungrateful manner. We're not going to act on these emotions, but we are going to pick them up and look at them. And there's no judgment in looking at them. And then there's this spot. This was a really powerful spot for me. She says, we remember. And what she means by this is we say, okay, now that you picked it up and you're looking at this emotion, when was the first time you felt this? And I tell you what, that is powerful. Mm-hmm. If you are feeling, what was the example I gave? No, nobody RSVP'd for an event that I didn't even want to do. And now I'm disappointed. When was the first time I felt this? It's going to kind of blow you away. And you may have a really strong reaction. So give yourself some space to sit with God, to let God journey with you, in order to process memories that will come up. And they're emotional memories, and they're stored in a different part of our brain than other memories. So it's very interesting what might come up the first time we felt fear at a loud noise. So if we find ourselves jumping and our heart rate going, and we really stop and pause with that, when is the first time you felt that? It'll be very powerful. So that comes with a disclaimer. And then she says, persist. Even though you just had a really difficult realization, like, oh, I remember the first time I felt this. And it's really powerful because the memory feeling and the real feeling are kind of meshing here. She says, persist, stay with it. And then we share. That's the point where we're sharing. We're sharing with a trusted person, but most importantly, we're sharing with God. We're inviting God right into this. We're asking God to share our burden. We are relying on God's promises to be with us. His presence is with us during this process. And he is actually, she says that we can let emotional distress bring us to a point of desperation. And a lot of us in this room came to Jesus at a point of desperation. And like as we were getting clean, or at the end of our using, the end of our dysfunctional behavior, we were desperate. And we can get kind of complacent. But if we can get friendly with these raw emotions and really dive deeper into what he has for us in these emotions, we can touch on that desperation again of how much we need Jesus to walk with us in order to navigate the healing. She says to ask two questions. What should I learn? We're asking two questions of God when we're sharing with God this difficult emotion, this difficult process. What should I learn about you, God? And this is where God is going to be telling us about he is always present. His love is unfailing. He is with us through our old difficult emotion and our current difficult emotion. And that's how we bring healing forward. And the second question is, what do you want me to do to bring you glory through this? So these emotions can bring healing and bring God glory. She had suggestions for going forward, which is practice, practice, practice. Take care of your body. Take a break from the screens. This is a good one. Sit in silence. Even if you're not having strong emotions. But if you want to process a moment where you were having some strong emotions, when you get the opportunity, just sit in silence. Silence in here, silence from out here. And seek God's presence in silence. It can be his presence will be very profound. We don't need to speak in order to acknowledge God's presence. Sit in God's beauty, nature. For me, that's being outside, go outside. lean into God's promises, which is meditate on the promises in His Word, and lean into your Christian fellowship. Those were some of her suggestions. That's what I got.
Thanks, Teresa.